All right, diving into some deep stuff today. You sent over this article, The Universe Isn't Expanding, Awareness Is, and I gotta say that title really grabbed my attention.
Yeah, it's a pretty bold statement, right?
Yeah.
But the article really gets you thinking about reality in a different way.
Totally. One thing that stood out was this idea that our eyes belong to the universe, you know?
hmm
Sounds poetic, but what's the actual meaning?
Well, just think about it. The universe experiences itself through every point in perception, and that includes us, right? Your unique way of seeing the world, all your experiences and thoughts, they're part of the universe's big picture.
So it's like, we're not just looking at the universe, we're the universe looking back at itself.
Yeah, exactly. The article uses this great comparison.
Mm-hmm.
It says that humanity searching for meaning is like looking for water when you're already standing in the ocean.
Oh, I see what you mean. We're so busy looking for something out there when we're already surrounded by something amazing and huge.
It's like we've forgotten we're already part of something much bigger.
And speaking of forgetting, the article gets into ancient wisdom, specifically the Emerald Tablets, and there's this quote that really struck me. Ye think that ye liveth, but know it is life within death. Kind of a stooky one, huh?
It is, but it's also really profound. The Emerald Tablet suggests that our physical existence, the way we experience life right now, is actually limited compared to the freedom of pure consciousness.
So it's like we're only experiencing a tiny part of what's really possible.
Right, and then the article goes on to challenge this idea that our identity is limited to our physical bodies. It uses the analogy of a TV. If you turn it off, you don't destroy the signal, you just stop seeing it.
So our bodies are like the TVs, and our consciousness is the signal.
Yeah. Our bodies might be temporary, but our awareness, that signal, could be limitless and could keep going even after our bodies are gone.
Okay, now that's a mind-blowing concept. But if that's true, how do we even start to tap into this bigger awareness? The article mentions these yogic practices as a technology, but honestly, some of those terms are a bit over my head.
Yeah. Well, things like pratyahara, dharana, and dhyana are basically all about training your awareness.
Could you break that down a bit? What do those even mean?
Sure. So pratyahara is about withdrawing your senses from distractions outside yourself. Dharana is focusing your concentration, and dhyana is that state of deep meditation.
So it's not about just sitting around trying to empty your mind. It's more about actively training your attention and how you perceive things.
Exactly. They're like tools to make your awareness sharper and broader so you can perceive things beyond your normal senses.
That makes sense. But here's something I always wonder about when we talk about consciousness creating reality. If we have this power, why can't we just snap our fingers and make whatever we want happen?
That's a pretty common misunderstanding. What the article's saying isn't that our individual egos have total control over reality. It's more about this idea that creation happens through us, not by us as individuals.
So it's more complicated than just wishing things into existence. There's more going on.
Absolutely. Our reality is shaped by a whole bunch of things. Individual and collective beliefs, our past experiences, even universal laws that we might not fully understand.
It's like we're all creating this reality together, but within a framework that's way bigger than just our own wants.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And this leads into how the article critiques materialism, this idea that consciousness is just a product of our brains.
The whole we're just biological machines thing.
Right. But the article points out that this view doesn't explain things like near-death experiences where people report information they couldn't have known otherwise.
Or like the observer effect in quantum mechanics, where just observing something actually changes how it behaves.
Exactly. These are just a couple of examples suggesting that consciousness might be more fundamental to reality than we usually think. It might not be just something our brains produce, but a key part of how reality works.
Okay, so we're talking about a big shift in how we see ourselves and the world.
Absolutely. It's moving from a reality focused on matter to one where consciousness is at the center. And this has some pretty huge implications for how we understand our place in the universe.
It's incredibly thought-provoking. But if consciousness is so fundamental, how can we even start to experience this expanded awareness? Are we talking about, like, becoming enlightened?
That's where things get really interesting. The article brings in this concept called Jivan Mukti from yogic and Zen traditions, which is all about achieving liberation while you're still alive.
Liberation while alive. Sign me up. But how does that actually work?
Well, in Zen, they use these riddles called koans, like what is the sound of one hand clapping?
Yeah, those always kind of make my head
That's
spin.
the whole point. They're meant to go around our logical thinking and trigger a direct experience of our true nature, that limitless awareness we've been talking about.
So it's not about figuring out the right answer. It's about just wrestling with the question.
Exactly, like a mental workout for your consciousness.
I like that. And speaking of workouts, the article brings up this pretty challenging idea. Maybe suffering and limitation are actually on purpose in the human experience, like resistance training for our souls. Wait, so you're saying our challenges are there to help us grow?
That's the idea. It's not about saying suffering is good, but about understanding that challenges can make us evolve and find inner strength.
So our struggles are like lifting weights at the gym, but for our spirits.
Exactly. And the article goes on to talk about some incredible examples of what people can do when they break free from those limitations things we're conditioned to believe. Like, for example, Tibetan Tummo meditation, where people can actually generate heat to survive freezing temperatures.
Wait, they can control their body temperature with their minds. That's wild.
It really is. And then there's Taoist inner alchemy, which focuses on developing what they call an immortal body.
Hold on, are we talking about literally living forever?
Not exactly in the way we usually think of it. It's more about going beyond identifying with just our physical bodies and tapping into a much deeper level of vitality and awareness.
So it's about being less attached to our bodies and more connected to that boundless awareness we talked about.
Exactly. These examples show us the potential we have when we move beyond what we're conditioned to believe.
This is all so fascinating, but I gotta be honest, it's a lot to take in.
I know, right? But it gets even more interesting. The article introduces this thing called the cosmic joke.
The cosmic joke. Okay, now you've got me really curious.
The joke is that we spend our whole lives searching for something outside of ourselves, something to make us feel complete. But what we're really looking for is already inside us.
Like we've hidden a treasure from ourselves and then spend our lives trying to find it again.
Exactly. The journey of awakening is about remembering who we really are, not about learning something totally new.
So it's about rediscovering that spark of something bigger within us that's always been there.
You got it. And when we tap into that, we realize that true freedom and fulfillment come from recognizing that boundless awareness that we already are.
This is mind-blowing stuff. We've covered so much already, and I feel like we're just scratching the surface of this article. What else is coming up as we keep going deeper? That cosmic joke idea is really sticking with me. It's humbling,
Mm-hmm.
but also kind of comforting to think maybe what we're searching for has been inside us all along.
It is powerful. And the article says it can be really freeing, right? It's not about reaching some goal out there. It's about recognizing that infinite consciousness, the one that's already within us.
Like we're not trying to become something we're not, but remembering something we forgot.
Yeah, exactly. Peeling back those layers of conditioning and beliefs that kind of cover up our true nature. It makes me think of that Rumi quote, "You are not a drop in the ocean. You are the entire ocean in a drop."
That's a good one. It really gets the point across.
Oh,
But if we are this boundless awareness, this ocean in a drop, how does that actually play out in our lives? How do we live from that place?
that's the big question, right? The article really stresses recognizing what it calls the illusion of separation.
Illusion of separation. What's that mean exactly?
Well, we tend to see ourselves as separate people, disconnected from everything and everyone else. But this article and a lot of spiritual traditions say that feeling of separation is an illusion. It's just because our perception is limited.
So instead of being like isolated islands, we're more like connected waves in this huge ocean of consciousness.
That's a great way to put it. We're all connected, woven together, and if we recognize that, it can really change how we relate to ourselves, to others, even to the world around us.
It makes you realize we're all in this together. Our actions have an effect that spreads out.
For sure. It creates a sense of compassion, empathy, even responsibility for our part in the bigger picture.
Makes you question the stuff we usually value in society, the success, possessions, status, all that seems less important when you see this bigger picture of how we're all connected.
Absolutely. The article challenges us to rethink our priorities, ask what really matters. It says real fulfillment comes from aligning with our true nature, that boundless awareness inside.
So it's not about rejecting the material world, but understanding that it's not the ultimate source of happiness.
Right. The material world is part of the experience, but it's not the whole story. There's a deeper level to reality, and that's where true liberation is.
This is all really inspiring, but I gotta admit, sometimes it feels a bit overwhelming. How do we even begin to grasp this vastness of consciousness?
It's understandable to feel that way. The scale of it can be a lot, but the article says we don't have to do it all at once. It's a gradual thing. Awakening happens over time.
So it's not about some sudden big enlightenment experience.
Not necessarily. It's more about bringing that awareness into everything we do, noticing that interconnection, even in the smallest things,
Like,
appreciating just being alive.
this makes me think about those yogic practices as technologies for expanding awareness, right? It's not just about formal meditation. It's about bringing that mindful awareness into every single thing we do.
That's it. Being mindful when we're walking, eating, talking, working, how we interact, basically making life itself a kind of meditation.
I like that. And the article says that this shift in perspective, this awareness expansion, can actually have an effect that goes beyond us as individuals. You mean like our individual awakening can contribute to a collective awakening?
Exactly. As more people tap into their true nature, as more of us recognize our interconnectedness, it changes the collective consciousness.
So it's not just about our personal transformation. It's about being part of a bigger movement toward awareness and unity.
That's right. We become part of something much bigger than just ourselves, something that goes beyond our individual lives and connects us to the very essence of existence.
Before we move on, can we circle back to that idea of suffering and limitation being intentional? It's a tough one, but interesting.
Definitely something to think about. Remember that weightlifting analogy. The article says these challenges, these moments where things are hard, they're not punishments, but chances to grow.
I get it, but sometimes those weights feel really heavy. It's hard to see the point of struggling, especially when you're right in the middle of it.
I hear that. But the article wants us to see the bigger picture, that cosmic perspective, which we might not be able to grasp from where we are now. Imagine you're weaving a tapestry. From the back, you just see all the knots and loose threads, but on the other side, a beautiful design is coming together.
I like that image. It's about trusting that even when we don't get it, there's something bigger guiding us towards something whole and complete.
Exactly. It's in those moments of struggle, when we feel lost, that we can discover how strong we are, a resilience we didn't know we had.
Like a diamond, right? They're formed under huge pressure.
So, it's not about avoiding challenges, but learning how to go through them with grace, recognizing that even when things are tough, there's something in us that can change and grow. Yes, it's about embracing everything, the good and bad, the joy and sorrow, knowing they're all part of this one big, complicated life.
And that life, like this article is saying, is woven into the universe itself. We're not separate threads, but connected strands, all contributing to the beauty of the whole thing.
That's a great way to put it. We're all part of something way bigger than ourselves, something beyond what we can understand.
And realizing that, really letting that sink in, is where freedom and fulfillment come from. Shifting from this small sense of self to a bigger awareness of how we're all connected.
That's it. That's the heart of it. And it's a journey we're all on together.
This has been a really eye-opening conversation. I feel like I have a totally new way of looking at things.
That's what these deep dives are all about, right? Expanding our awareness, looking at new possibilities, remembering what's possible within us. But there's one more important idea from the article I think we need to talk about. It's about creation and how consciousness shapes reality.
Okay, now I'm intrigued. You said earlier that creation happens through us, not by us. Can you explain that a little more? Okay, so diving back into that idea of creation happening through us, not by us, I gotta admit, still trying to wrap my head around that.
Yeah, it's a tricky one for sure. Maybe think of it like this. Imagine a gardener planting seeds, right? They don't force the seeds to grow, but they create the right environment, the soil, water, sunlight.
Okay, I'm with you so far.
Yeah.
So we're like gardeners of our own reality.
Kinda, yeah. We're taking part in creation, but not in this controlling way from our ego. We're co-creating with something way bigger than ourselves.
I see. That actually takes a lot of pressure off needing to be in control of everything, which is kind of nice.
Exactly. It's about recognizing we're a part of this huge web of creation that's bigger than we can understand.
This whole conversation has been so interesting, but I gotta be honest, there's a part of me that feels stuck. Like, if we are this boundless awareness, if we have this incredible potential inside us, why is it so hard to get to? Why are we still held back by limitations, by fear, by doubt?
That's a really good question. Remember, the article says our current experience of reality is kind of a limitation in itself. Like, we've chosen to play a game with certain rules, certain limits, to help us learn and grow.
Like we've put on blinders to make the game harder on purpose?
That's one way to think about it. And the article doesn't ignore the reality of suffering. It actually says that suffering, limitation, all those tough moments aren't mistakes in the system, but are really important parts of being human.
Okay, I need you to explain that more. Not sure I'm ready to embrace suffering like it's a good thing.
I get it, it's a hard one to accept. Think about an athlete training for a marathon. They don't avoid pain and exhaustion, right? They embrace it, knowing it's making them stronger, tougher.
So our struggles, even our pain, can be seen as chances to grow.
Exactly. It's not about saying suffering is great, it's about seeing how it can transform us. It's often when we're pushed to our absolute limit that we find strength and resilience we never knew we had.
That makes sense. Like, we need the darkness to appreciate the light, the tough times, to really appreciate the good times.
Well said. And the article goes on to say that awakening, that whole process of expanding our awareness, it's not about becoming perfect or getting rid of all suffering. It's about learning how to navigate all of it, the whole human experience, with grace and wisdom.
So it's not about escaping reality, but fully embracing it, all the messy and beautiful parts.
Exactly. Learning to dance with the shadows as much as with the light. Finding meaning and purpose even when things are difficult.
I love that analogy. It's about finding the rhythm, the balance between enjoying all that life has to offer and also working to expand our awareness, tapping into that potential inside us.
That's it. And remember, it's not a journey you have to take alone. We're all doing this together, supporting each other along the way.
This brings us back to that tapestry image, right? We're all connected threads, each doing our part to create something much bigger and more beautiful than we could ever imagine alone.
And the more we wake up to that truth, the more we recognize how connected we are, the more beautiful and vibrant that tapestry becomes.
It's a powerful vision. So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the one thing you hope people listening will take away with them?
I think it's this. The universe isn't expanding outward. Our awareness is expanding inward. It's about recognizing that infinite potential we all have inside us and choosing to live from that place of boundless awareness. It's about realizing we're not separate from the universe, but that we are the universe experiencing itself in all these different forms, including us.
That's beautiful. And like the article asks, are we living limited by our habits, or are we ready to break free from that illusion of separation and become the universe recognizing itself?
It's a big question, and ultimately the answer is within each of us.
And with that question, we leave you to ponder. What will you choose? Remember, awakening starts with one step, one choice, one moment of expanded awareness. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, and until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep expanding your awareness.